Hello, this is Dylan Moore of IRETA TV. If you happen to be watching this still on the Volitional Science Network YouTube channel, please stop and head over to the IRETA TV YouTube channel, or you can find us at the website at ireta.tv. We got a new thing going on. The old channel is old, and you'll be finding all my new stuff over here. Thanks. Hello, this is Dylan Moore with IRETA TV. I wanted to discuss something today that I really haven't talked a lot that much on IRETA TV. I did one show on it called The Four Circuits that I recommend checking out, but I really want to take some more time to delve into a subject which is near and dear to my heart, which is what I like to call intellectual self-defense. This is something that when I had a prior YouTube channel, I spent a little bit more time talking about, but I feel it's really important to everybody. It's really, really important to everybody to understand at the very least, the basics of intellectual self-defense. And I'm going to go out on a cocky limb and say I believe that I've developed let's call it a model, which allows a person to become very, very, I don't know, very, very skilled, but at least be able to learn the rules, the basic rules of the game, to play in the intellectual self-defense sphere. I think relatively quickly. I've developed a model that I don't think anybody has even come close to developing that can contribute the ideas that quickly. Now, I'm not going to be going over the expanse of the model. I'm going to kind of zoom into it, and I'm going to present this in a way where you don't have to know all the terminology. I've made up terminology, right, that you got to understand if you keep going down and listening to the finer details of this. This is more of an intro video where I'm gonna leave most of that terminology aside that you could watch on its own and get an idea of what I'm talking about. So when I say intellectual self-defense, what am I talking about? So similar to normal self-defense, this is about how do you defend yourself when somebody's attacking you. Now, obviously, I don't mean attacking you as in like, here's the fist coming to me from another person, they're attacking me, right? This is more of a verbal or an emotional attack. How do you deal with it? And more importantly, how do you identify it? Because in our modern polite day and age, particularly now that everybody's communicating through social media and you don't run the risk of getting hit in the mouth when you're making a Facebook comment, right? But we live in this polite civilization where it is assumed that you're not going to get physically attacked for disagreeing with somebody in most of your day-to-day, right? So how does the fight actually happen? How does it actually occur? Well, I mean, people are familiar, even if in a civilized society, if somebody gets mad in your face and starts swearing at you and all that sort of stuff. I'm not talking about that either. I'm talking about when someone is manipulating you in particular. And by manipulation, I'm going to define this, I think, somewhat clearly, is getting you to do something that you don't want to do without you realizing that you're being attacked. I'm going to say that again. Getting you to do something that you don't want to do without you realizing you're being attacked, therefore meaning you thinking that you're having a rational conversation when you're not. What do I mean by that? So this is an observation that I made that as far as I've been able to test myself and other people have tested when I've told them about this is true. This is a gross oversimplification of psychology. Doesn't matter what I'm going to tell you. I believe you're going to find out is going to work very, very effectively. So the premise of what I'm talking about, the foundation of what I'm talking about, is there's two different, I'm going to call them circuits, that we interact with each other on. There's a emotional circuit and there's a rational circuit. On the emotional circuit, we interact on a win-lose dichotomy, or I could say a submit or dominate dichotomy. I'm trying to tell you what to do, or I am telling you what to do, and you're obeying, or you're telling me what to do, and I'm obeying. This is all about hierarchy, and a good way to understand this sort of interaction is like looking at a dog pack or a wolf pack. You know, there's no committees in a wolf pack. There's no discussion. It's just the alpha dog says we're going to do this, and if the other dogs don't do that, you know, they'll use physical violence. But typically, like I said, we're in a polite society, and you're not typically going to see physical violence, but it's still we still see the emotional dichotomy of you do as I say or I do what you say. That's one way we interact. I'm going to put that over here. The other way that we interact is rationally. Now, a rational interaction, it doesn't necessarily have to be this way, but there's the potential for win-win. Both sides of the interaction have some way of getting something out of the interaction. And in order to be able to do this, we have to use this thing called reason. Now, when I say reason, I want to be very, very clear about that. I'm referring specifically to following the formal rules of logic. So if, hey, you want this, I want that. If we do it this way, you can get something out of the deal and I can get something out of the deal. Maybe it's something both that we get what we're happy. Maybe we're not fully happy, but we get enough to feel good about the fact that we didn't manipulate the other person, right? This follows the formal rules of logic, and I'm not going to be talking about the formal rules of logic here. And in fact, I want to emphasize something about the formal rules of logic. So when it comes to the formal rules of logic and understanding fallacies, which is to say, logic is built using syllogisms. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it right now. Logic is built using syllogisms, and when you break a syllogism or you mess up a syllogism in forming an argument, that is a fallacy. The logical connections were not made accordingly. And so if you were to go and study logic and learn about the fallacies, when you learn these fallacies, you're basically learning how to identify this is where the logic was not followed accordingly. Now, fallacies are great and they're important. But that's not what I'm talking about, because I often find that the fallacies are slow and just knowing them doesn't tell you what to do. Right? I mean, it's like, let's go back to the actual self-defense, physical self-defense analogy here, right? If somebody punches you in the face, bam! And you're like, well, I have identified that this person has punched me in the face. And, hey, person who punched me in the face, you punched me in the face. Great, you've identified it. Now what do you do? Right? This video, that when I talk about intellectual self-defense, I'm more focused on what do you do once you identify? The identification is important. Don't get me wrong, and I've got some tips and tricks up my sleeve to speed up what I think is speeding up the identification that goes a little bit faster than fallacies. Not going to be going over them in this video, but what's even more important is once you've identified you're in a situation that's a win-lose, or you're in a emotional fight, what do you do about it? Right? So the fallacies are there for you to say, okay, if I'm in a rational conversation, how do I identify that it might not actually be rational? So when we compare these two circuits, as I'm referring to them, we got the emotional over here, we got the rational over here. This is, I mean, so far I probably haven't told you anything you haven't heard before. This is the key component. This is the key component that everybody misses. Is that if you're having an interaction with somebody, two people are having an interaction, if one person is attempting to interact on the emotional circuit and the other person is attempting to interact on the rational circuit, okay, this person's trying to have a win-lose interaction, this person's trying to have a win-win interaction, what happens? The win-lose interaction sets the stage by default. What do I mean by that? So if you're trying to have a conversation, and as I talk more and more about this, you should be able to relate it to actual examples spilling out of your head as fast as you can think of them as I talk about this. But if you're trying to have a conversation with somebody, tell me if you've never experienced this before. You're trying to have a conversation with somebody, and the conversation starts getting uncomfortable. You feel like you're backing up, and you feel like you're losing, and you're like, why am I losing? Losing what? What's going on with losing here? What's happening, likely, is that the other person is manipulating you and you don't realize it. Now, here is... Actually, before I get that, I needed to finish what I was talking about. The emotional circuit sets the stage when it collides with the rational circuit. So if this interaction is happening, you're trying to be reasonable, and the other person is being aggressive, then you're having a win-lose interaction, right? If he's trying to win and therefore he's trying to make you lose, the fact that you're trying to have a win-win just doesn't matter anymore. It's just not affecting the interaction at all. So an analogy that I like to use that I think makes it very clear how this works is chess. So the game of chess has a very specific board with specific rules and specific pieces and a specific way to win. You have to follow the rules from the beginning to the end in order to win. And if for some reason those rules weren't followed somewhere between the beginning and the end, you haven't played, you quit playing chess, and the win that might happen in the end wasn't actually a win because you didn't play chess to get there. Well, I should say it's not a chess win because you didn't play chess to get there. So if we say, okay, chess is analogous to logic. We have these formal rules, and you really have to follow the rules in order to say that we're being reasonable, just like playing, we got to follow these rules in order to play chess. If the person you're playing chess with starts making up rules, starts taking pieces off the board, starts smacking stuff around, starts taking 2 turns in a row, you are clearly no longer playing chess, right? Now, what most people do, now, I mean, if you were playing chess and somebody did that to you, you'd be like, dude, we're not playing chess. This is stupid, right? But when it comes to reason, when it comes to rationality and logic, for whatever reason, I have some ideas what the reasons might be. For whatever reason, I'm going to scoot this way a little bit. So when I lift my hand, it shows up instead of being over here. For whatever reason, we're like, oh, this guy, he's really good at chess. Oh man, I better really focus on making sure that I play a really good chess game here, because this guy's getting the edge on me. Well, the fact that you're still focusing on playing chess, do you see how that doesn't affect what he's doing whatsoever? And in fact, it's worse than that, because you're an idiot if you do this, because there's another game being played. And the other game being played in this chess example is I get to make up the rules to chess. I get to make up the rules to what's going on here, and I'm going to make them up so I always win. If you respond to that by trying to follow the rules harder, you lose by default, right? I mean, is it hard to see that if you don't address what the person is actually doing to you, you're just spinning yourself in circles and not only giving him no resistance, you're putting your defenses down because you're focused on this other thing that's not helping you at all, right? This is how when the emotional circuit and the rational circuit collide, the emotional circuit always wins because it's a different game, and it's a different game that supersedes the rational one. Okay? So usually when I explain this to somebody, that's the new piece of information that they're not aware of. Because, let's compound this and make the situation worse for the rational people, right? Is that I said, I have some ideas why people typically try to stay rational. I think there's 2 main reasons. The first reason is that smart people think it's good to be smart. Was Dylan saying it's not good to be smart? In some cases, that isn't exactly what I'm saying. So, smart people, and I fall into this category. Yes, I'm calling myself smart, and I have the self-awareness to recognize that I've done this. The reason that people want to continue being smart is because they want to stay in their lane. They want to stay in the arena where they're good at, and they're uncomfortable in the other arena, which is the dominate arena, right? And furthermore, there's this idea, and I really, really want to get this is like probably the most important point of this video that I want to get across, is that if they were to bring themselves down to the level of the dominator, right, of this guy engaged in this emotional attack, that's degrading to themselves. Now, I don't know if that's something that's self-inflicted when you're smart, or it's something that society teaches you because they taught you how to be picked on by bullies or whatever, but that is completely the opposite of true. What's degrading is when you sit there continuing to try to play chess when the person's just walking in circles around you and knocking you around and taking complete advantage of you. That's degrading. So what I'm telling you is you need to learn how to drop, boom, and come down to that emotional level and engage on that emotional level. This is super duper duper important because I don't think I've used this word in this video yet. The term that I like to use is sophistry. I'm using, let me define that specifically. So sophistry, my definition, is pretending to be in this rational world when in reality you're existing in the emotional world. Why would somebody do this? Because that's actually different, because that's a form of manipulation, right? This is different from, an emotional attack could come out in the open. Hey, you, I think you're ugly. I think your shirt is stupid. I think I should smack you upside the head, and I'm going to get in your face about it. That's obviously a dominate, submit interaction, right? That's an emotional interaction. But there's nothing hidden about it, right? Sophistry is when you're pretending to be reasonable and pretending to use logic when in reality you're dominating somebody. And you do this through the use of fallacies. And what fallacies are supposed to be for is for you to be able to catch that. Or not, fallacies aren't for that, but for you studying fallacies is for you to learn how to catch that, right? So they want you to continue being reasonable. We'll call the sophist wants you to continue being reasonable because then they could have all the benefits of dominating you without any of the risks of you retaliating. Let me say that again. They want all the benefits of dominating you with no risk of you retaliating. And you fall for it over and 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 over again. People do it because it works very, very effectively. So, I'll be making more videos on how to identify this, but for the sake of this conversation, let's just stick with, we can use fallacies to identify when this happens. When you learn how to identify when this happens, what I have found is that when you challenge somebody when they do this, there will be a process of them trying to shirk around it, and I'll get into that process in a second. But if you stick to it and show them, I recognize that we're having a fight, I'm not going to pretend that we're having a conversation, and I'm prepared to fight you right now. Let's go. If you do that to somebody who is engaging in sophistry, I don't know if it's 100% of the time, but I'm going to take a wild stab that it's like 99.99% of the time. They are going to scurry away into the dark like a cockroach. They just scurry away with like a dog with their tail in between the legs. Because if they had any balls to begin with, they would have just came out and openly dominated you in the first place. The reason that they're bothering to engage in the sophistry manipulation crap is because they're afraid of you hitting back. They're afraid of you hitting back. And if you do hit back, if you show them that you're going to hit back, man, they have got somewhere else to be. They will be out of there so freaking fast. I mean, and I'm not even referring to this metaphorically. When I've challenged people on this, I've learned how to recognize this, and I'm not going to tell the story now, but there was a specific day when this all. I recognized and understood how this worked. The person will literally in front of you, shoulders slumped over, walk away, walk out of the room because they're so humiliated. Like, not metaphor at all, that they scamper off. Scurry off, I think is the better word. They scurry off. So, but when you go through this interaction, this is something to be warned about, is that if you work on calling somebody out, and calling somebody out can have many, many different forms. And I do want to say this is quasi a disclaimer, that there's the description and the identification of manipulation and sophistry, which is a thing I could talk about until I'm blue in the face here, which is a conversation I love. I think it's pretty cut and dry. Then there's what you do about it. And this is where the actual intellectual self-defense part comes up. Now, if you know anything about actual self-defense or actual martial arts, you know that You can never learn them from a book. And I mean, you can get tips from like watching other people do it or watching videos do it, but you can't learn from watching other people do it. You have to actually do it and practice it. And furthermore, it's not like there's a one right way to do this, right? There's all sorts of styles and all sorts of techniques that have varying levels of success depending on the other person that you're dealing with and how good you are at this thing, that, the other, right? The point that I'm trying to get at is that I'm going to describe the way I like to handle, the way I like to get my hands dirty when it comes to dealing with sophists. Just because this is the way I do it doesn't mean there aren't other ways to do it. But that said, I do believe my description and my identification is very, very cut and dry. Okay, so, and that identification specifically being, we have this emotional realm, we have this rational realm. When they clash, the emotional realm sets the stage for what's actually going on. And most people, particularly people that are smart and they're good at reason, A, don't recognize it, and B, don't do anything about it. Okay, so when you decide you want to do something about it, and one of my preferred methods, should you choose that it's even worth it, right? I mean, like, if you're filling up gas at the gas station and some homeless guy comes over and starts screaming at you or whatever, okay, maybe he's engaging in sophistry, but is it really worth your time to engage in that sort of thing, right? But like, pick your battles here, right? When you do decide to engage in this and get right on that level and call somebody out, there's this often there's this game that goes back and forth where the person will desperately try to keep you reasonable. If they can keep you in the rational circuit, they don't have to defend themselves. I've been taking boxing now for a little while. I put my hands in boxing. Like, they don't have to worry about any incoming punches, right? They can just sit there and wail away, and you just sit there like, okay, well, maybe if I can form my argument a little bit better, he'll stop punching me. No, it doesn't work that way, right? So the first thing they're going to do is say, oh, no, I'm trying to have a conversation. I'm just trying to figure this out. Oh, my, yeah. Hoping that you continue to be rational. When you don't continue to be rational, they'll play the victim. Oh my God, I'm just trying to do this thing, and this is so, I just want some information. Don't hit me, right? You got to get through that. Again, they're trying to push you back to that rational circuit. And then usually I find the final thing is they start projecting. You're the one who started this fight. You're the one who's being unreasonable. You're blah, 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 blah. Which is true. You're now being unreasonable, but you weren't unreasonable first, right? Here, this is the trick. The guy was actually being unreasonable, even though it didn't look like it. It didn't look like he was being unreasonable, but he was. So act as if he is. Okay? You come down on the level, and my personal favorite tactic is literally to tell the person what's going on. I recognize you're doing this. We're having an emotional fight. Or don't have to say the word emotion. You're doing this. That's conflict. That's a fight. I recognize it. I'm prepared to fight. Let's go. Whoo, they got somewhere else to be. Goddamn, they got somewhere else to be when you do that. When you, and also if you're someone who's not like this at all, this is a muscle that you need to train. And the first time you do it, you're going to have an adrenaline rush and you're going to get all freaked out and you'll probably be shaking out after you're done, right? Just look forward to that. And as you practice it more and more, you'll get more and more comfortable with it. But there's another aspect of this that's really important. And this is ultimately why I feel so compelled to even talk about this, is that most of the world has no idea how any of this works. They haven't got the slightest clue how any of this works. So when they watch an interaction like this, someone dominates utilizing sophistry, they're looking like they're being rational, and somebody like me comes along and goes, haha, I recognize you're not being rational. I am going to emotionally punch you in the face. Bam! Because I recognize that we're having a fight. And he runs away. Oh my God. Makes a big scene in front of the audience, right? If there are people watching this interaction, they're going to blame you for starting the fight. everybody watching this is going, oh my God, yeah, I remember that one time, that other time. Yeah, I know. Like, this is like immediately practicable. Immediately practical. Is that because people don't understand this at all, they're going to blame you for starting the fight, and the sophist knows that. They're going to play to the crowd, right? That's what when they're doing the, oh my, I just came here for some information. Oh, you're the one who's being mean. You started this fight. They're looking for the crowd to apply some peer pressure on you so you feel bad, and you go back to being reasonable so they can dominate you without any effort. If you can learn, I promise you, this will work this way. If you can learn to, first of all, mop the floor with the sophist in front of you because he's a coward and he's not going to fight back once you show some teeth. And then you turn around and you look at all the people that are like, oh my God, Dylan, that guy, you were so mean to that guy. He didn't do anything. He just came over for a conversation. You go, no! You guys don't understand what you're looking at. That guy started the fight. It's not my fault you don't know it. And if you want to sit here and lecture me about it and guilt me about it, I will fight you too. I'm sorry, I'm just remembering this actually happening. Like, it just works like a charm because nobody will fucking fight you. No one will challenge you on it. And I realize this. Someone correct me if you think this is wrong, right? I recognize this is that because these people, most people don't understand how this works. Obviously, we're emotional creatures before we're rational creatures, but even people who want to be rational creatures, if they don't understand how this works, what they do is they follow the nearest alpha. Okay, you know this is true. The people follow the nearest alpha. So when you challenge them after you mop the floor with Wimpy Dimpy Sophist, and they come back to you, and you challenge them, and they all back up, and they don't want to mess with you, you just became the alpha. You just became the alpha. Suddenly, everybody will respect you way more. It's, I mean, there's like this stereotype. I mean, it's true. There's a stereotype for men in particular, right? If two men get mad at each other and they fight, like physically, give each other some black eyes and some bruises and stuff, after the fight, they're best friends. I don't know why that's the case, but I think it's a similar thing that happens is that I guess you're, and people don't there's not like there's this conscious knowledge of this is what's going on, but people recognize you as somebody respectable that will defend himself. This guy's willing to put up for what he says. I'll try to truncate the story as much as possible. There was several years ago, I met with a friend of mine in Seattle, and he had another friend with him that I had never met before. This other friend that he had with him was incredibly intelligent, particularly in the realm of philosophy. And we ended up getting on this philosophical discussion. I'm not going to bore you with the details of particularly what it was. I had a disagreement, and my disagreement revolved around the fact that the philosophical concept that he was promoting, at least from his description of it, I felt was if it was true, it gave an open-ended opportunity for anyone to engage in sophistry because they could always appeal to this philosophical concept. If that philosophical concept is true. This is something I'll make more videos on about later. Don't worry about the details of this. So there was this tension going back and forth, and I could tell this guy was not used, he was so smart, and particularly on this philosophical dry-ass philosophical topic, that I think he was used to nobody challenging him, not because they didn't want to, but just because the conversation left the realm of where most people are able to grasp. They're like, it was about Kant, Immanuel Kant, right? Oh my God, we're talking about Kant. What's going on? Right. So, here's a practical hint. If someone's smarter than me on a certain subject, I feel if they can't break that subject down in words that I can understand, Or, I mean, even say, I'm super sorry. This is really complicated. I went to school for 8 years to understand this. I can't explain it. Fine. I accept that, right? But if they can't break it down in words that I can understand, or at least try, and they move up to using language and concepts that they know the other person doesn't understand, they might not be engaging in word salad, but I can't tell if they are. And they should know that the person listening to them can't tell if they're engaging in word salad. So once we get into this, I mean, this happens anywhere. Once somebody gets into a zone where they're using words that you don't understand, you have now entered a field where they can start using word salad and you don't know. If you're going to have a debate, a discussion, the other party can't do that. I mean, if they do that, I mean, it's like you lose the chain of custody of the conversation or something, right? I have to assume that you're manipulating me, and if you're not, break it down where I can understand it. So this guy, he kept going up into this realm where I couldn't understand, and instead of getting overawed, I said, no, I don't understand that. Break it down. I don't understand that. Break it down. Like, say this to me in words that I can understand. And we got stuck on this one philosophical point. And I just went and let him get past it because, I mean, A, I didn't agree with it, but B, I didn't understand what he was saying. I'm like, clarify this. And I could tell he was getting really frustrated, right? And I could also tell he wasn't used to somebody challenging him like this. And at some point, he got mad. And we were at this coffee shop, right? And he looks at me and he slams the table. He goes, Dylan! Clearly in the emotional circuit, right? If someone's doing something like that, right? Dylan! Honest to God, I don't remember his name. I'm just going to call him Nick, right? I looked back at him and I went, Nick! And that's when the glass shattered in his mind, where he took a deep breath and he leaned back, and then the conversation really calmed down. Now, I told you that story, A, because I wanted to show you that this works. He really backed off from me at that, and then after that we had the totally polite conversation. After we were done and everybody had to go, so the three of us go out. My friend goes this way. Hey, my car's over here. I'm gonna go. He goes that way. The guy, Nick, or whatever his name was, who though I had to fight with, he's parked over in the same direction as me. Motherfucker followed me all the way to my car, just blabbing at me the whole time. Friendly as can be. And I really had to think about that afterwards, because it's exactly what I just said. It's exactly what I just said, which is that people follow the nearest alpha. I alpha'd the situation. Now he wanted to be my friend. It's so bizarre. I mean, it's just the way things work. It's so bizarre. So if you can learn to recognize, and I'm going to do more videos on recognition, and that's half the battle. Because I mean, just like, imagine chess. Imagine you've never seen chess before, and you come up and you look at this board, and you see two people moving pieces around. You wouldn't have the slightest freaking clue what's going on, right? For most people, that's how reason works. That's how rational discussion and logic work. They don't have the slightest clue how this stuff works, even though they use words every day. If you can learn how to identify when the sophistry is taking place, when you're getting an attack that's supposed to look like that you're having a rational conversation, you drop the pretense. Completely drop the pretense. Be like, I'm prepared to make a scene. I don't care if I look unreasonable. I'm ready to go. You do that. Shock the other person. If there's an audience, take on the audience, do the same thing. You will earn respect. You will get respect. And we will be one step closer to having a rational civilization. And I say that as seriously as I can. I believe that the fate of civilization hangs in the balance of understanding this thing, because all the smart persons, All the smart people, they have smart person problems, which I call the chess dilemma. Everybody, all these smart people are engaged in the chess dilemma where they're so good at being reasonable, they don't know how to be not reasonable. And so they lose. They lose. So civilization hangs in the balance on this, and please keep in tuned. I'll be making more videos like this going into the model. There's 3 models in total, but there's 2 specifically that I think are the more important of the 3. There'll be the 4 circuits. I did a show before on iRead TV. You can go check it out. I'm going to do another one because I just want to redo it. I think I can clarify it a little better. There's the 4 circuits. There's the line of reason, and then there's going to be the chain of responsibility. With these, I believe I could take you within a couple of hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours, depending on how long-winded I am these damn things, and give you 20% of the rules to play 80% of the game will change your life. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Dylan Moore at iRead TV, which you can find at iRead.tv.